he suggested as you go into and you're living your life through this relationship, is he said to keep your priorities in mind, which I think is excellent advice. Um, he said that decisions that he makes are always to serve the family's well-being. So keeping that priority in mind, um, keeping your visions at the forefront of your mind is paramount in having a um, the kind of relationship that you actually want to have and keeping things on the right track. Um, he suggested that instead of drifting through your relationship, to actually plan out your future. I think that that is something that a lot of people don't do in their relationships. Um, I'm a planner. I like to plan. I don't always like to do the plan, but I do like to do the planning. Huh. And some of uh, the ways that he described having a plan and working through a plan really sounds like having a small business. Is how it made me feel when I was reading through it. Um, and I can see a relationship being like having uh, a focused plan and a mission statement and keeping all of these things in mind. But um, yeah, Dino, I agree. Plans need to be flexible. Absolutely. And both people have to agree on the direction. Yes, absolutely. He said, I'm completely committed to thinking through where I want to be in 5 or 10 or 20 years and then focusing my energies toward that goal. I found that to be very successful. The more clear I can explain my goals and work through the necessary steps to attain the goals, the more easily my new life unfolds before me. There are many planning models you can use to build a personal or family plan. Pick one and use it. And then he goes into different kinds of plans for small businesses or strategic planning and that kind of thing. Oh, did I miss something when he said back here? Circumstances. Oh, and somebody trying to keep you apart. Okay. Yeah. Chatter said this is actually kind of what he talked about too, about internal and external environments and having specific approaches or strategies to deal with their goals with internal factors themselves in the dynamic and external factors, other people, outside influences that might impact them. Yeah, I think that having a plan for those types of things is um I was going to say biblical. The reason why I say that is because I remember going through marriage, like pre-marriage counseling, and having a talk with my pastor about external influences on your marriage. But I think that it it bleeds over into this as well, having external influences um, like family that's always trying to throw a wrench in your DS relationships, um, or work impacts, or even other kinksters can have an impact and an external impact on your relationship, especially for people who think that they know better than you. Um, I think that is something that I think having a plan and having a focus and knowing where you're going and what you want your life to look like is really important so that you don't have those external influences taking over. Dino said that's fine, but it takes two or more. Oh, with the directions, staying in the right direction. Well, I think that if as a master, I think that the idea is that you are the one who makes up all the rules, and that you have a submissive in generally who would serve as either your I guess partner in crime is a way of putting it. That you are going in the same direction because you're the one making who's doing the navigating, I guess, is what I'm saying. And keeping your plan in mind Oh, the plan needs to identify the sub's goals. Yes. Sorry, I'm snotty. It's spring here. The plan needs to identify the sub's goals. Oh, he just talks about his. Yes. Um, I think that that is something that you can take on a case by case basis. Like not case by case, excuse me. A each relationship is going to be different. Um, some subs like their goal is simply to serve the master and whatever his agenda is or their agenda is. Um, but you have goals for pre. Yeah. And your those goals for pre are in line with what your goals for the relationship are. And your goals are always in her best interest. Oh, but it's based on what she wants. Yeah. What she wants to get out of life, what direction she wants to go in. I think that that is oh, where does she want to be in 5 years? Yeah, that's a good question. I think that is relationship dependent though. I think that you can have a sub where that's your focus is on getting to her to where she wants to be in the future versus having a relationship that is what master? Them. Sorry, misgendering.
It's them. It's not master is the male and then the sub is the female, and you keep doing that.
I do. You're right. But I'm talking from my own experience is what I'm digging through. And you're right. It's not necessarily men are in charge and women are the slaves as we should be. Dino said ideally we both have 5-year goals and then we figure out how to move towards those assuming they are compatible together in and out of the relationship. I think that that's really smart because then you are both feeling fulfilled separately and in the relationship together. So you're supporting one another. And I think that that's really smart. And I think that's a healthy way of doing it. I think that that is um, I want to say that that's not something that can be geared towards every relationship because I believe that there are relationships where the master's agenda um, can trump the slave's agenda, and that the slave's agenda is in line with whatever the master wants to do. That they don't crave that kind of independence, but I do believe that because you do need a plan for the future and you do need to do the things that are in the uh, in the spirit of doing the right thing for your slave. I think that that is something that you need to keep in mind, definitely, and especially if you're keeping a relationship that you want to keep a relationship going long term. You need to have both people thinking together in that sense. You need to be in the same direction. I want to say because you said the plan needs to identify the sub's goals. I guess that could be the sub's goals could be set by either the sub or the master. That it's not um, that that's more of a fluid thing. Oh, maybe the sub's goal is to still be together in 5 years and both be able to pursue more of a lifestyle. Yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying now. Okay, so the sub's goal may not be, you know, to run off and make parachutes for a living. I don't know why parachutes, but it may not be independent. Yeah. And it could be that the sub's goal is to become more independent the on the master too. I've heard of relationships where that's They just, things are taken away from the slave as time goes on in order to make them feel like a true slave as much as they can in our society. Um, the other thing he talks about is giving your slave some free time, which I think is important. He says this relationship is not about getting your shirts cleaned and organizing your shirts in color order on hangers in your closet. It can be more about connection and purpose. It can be much more about living a purposeful and thoughtful life in order, which supports tranquility. And I think that is, I think it's really important to give your slave some downtime. I think you can get burned out really, really quickly in this lifestyle, and um, there needs to be some free time. There needs to be some rest. There needs to be some time. Um, Maybe not away from each other per se, although for me personally, I definitely need to have alone time in order to recharge. I think it just depends on what your slave is in need of. It might be that they need to have social time in order to recharge.
She needs some minor manners.
That too. He also said that it's important to catch your slave doing things right to demonstrate your appreciation. He said that a lot of people they only comment when their partner's doing something wrong. Oh, Samantha, you need to have free time also. You really do. You need to have time to recharge your batteries. You're a human being and you're not a robot. You don't just get turned on and off at will. You um got to have downtime. Um but catching someone in the act of doing things right, I think is really important, not just with slaves, but also with children and partners. And um, if you're always commenting on the things that they do wrong, then every interaction is going to be a downer. And you're always going to expect the other shoe to drop. Even if they give you a compliment, and you're going to be like, okay, well, they gave me a compliment. They're just going to be sandwiching it with something else now. Do you know it's the most powerful way to improve behavior? That's what I've read. And quite frankly, that's what I've experienced as well, especially with dealing with children. Praising them when they do the right thing, and not giving them either not giving them attention when they do something wrong, or out and out correcting it. But I think that catching someone doing something right in the first place it's really powerful. I agree with you, Dino. Good word choice. He said, often people only comment when their partner does something wrong. I believe that there is a serious risk in this. If you're always catching the person making a mistake, then your slave is likely to start anticipating that whenever you offer a compliment or a comment, even a neutral or positive comment, you're hiding what you're really thinking. Clearly, this reaction is the opposite of what you want or need. So, to break that possible cycle, he ends up leaving little congratulatory notes around for his slave to find. Good job. The bathroom is spotless. Thank you. Sometimes I'll go up to my slave and remark on what a competent job is being done or some other chore. And I love it when Master does this. Um, he'll mention, if I've cleaned the bathroom recently, he'll tell me how nice the bathroom looks. If he doesn't if I've worked hard on something and he doesn't mention it, or doesn't notice it, then I bring it up. I'm like, so what did you think of the bathroom? And if he hadn't noticed that it was clean, he'll go in there and look at it and then come back and be like, oh yeah, great job. Um, so I think that it that's okay too, because I need to get my um I need to get my points. I need that affirmation. And I think that that's okay. But I think that catching someone in the act is more meaningful. Samantha, you do that also? Yeah. Did you have any experience with that when you were teaching chatter? You need to get the attention for a good job. Yeah. You've done the work. You want to have the accolades, especially when it's something that's uh, monotonous or something that you do all the time. I think even just having, you know, someone thank you for doing the dishes or wiping down the counters or, you know, sucking cock really good. You need to have those that goal in mind. We'll see what Chatter has to say here. Glean from her knowledge and wisdom. Don't let us down, Chatter. No pressure. Have you ever had that backfire on you, Dino? I'm wondering. Praising someone to improve their behavior. Yeah, catching someone doing things right. I can't think of downsides to it, but I'm sure that there are. Oh, only when the incentive is properly aligned. Interesting. Okay. Can you give me a for instance on that? So let's say I praise clean laundry. Colin praises clean laundry. He praises it by jumping into the laundry basket. And laundry is always caught up. Yes. Oh, but the dishes aren't. Okay. Okay. This is sounding rather familiar. Huh. It's that finite time during the day and forgetfulness. So the dishes aren't done because it hasn't been praised. Okay, I can see that being the downside. They end up focusing on one thing and neglecting other things. I do that with Master too. He'll be like, "You didn't do this thing." And I'll be like, "Yeah, but look at all these other things I did. Look how awesome I am." Huh. Oh, same thing happens in business when you use incentives. I can see that. Yeah. See, I knew you had a good insight, Dino. Chatter said, "Oh yeah, positive reinforcement is definitely more beneficial than positive or negative punishments for behavior modification. That's why I talked about the 6 to 1 thing too. If you correct something once, try to acknowledge or be positive about the person about 6 times so they know you do appreciate them, and don't bring in the resentment weasels." I love that. It's really important to receive praise, even just smile and high fives, etc. Things to show that they are doing well and not always going to feel like they're messing up. Otherwise, they'll feel like you don't like and they're going to mess up anyway, so won't try as hard. Yeah. It's really important thing in teaching to keep in mind, even if you're struggling to find positive things a student is doing in that time, it's really important to focus on it and look for a way to build them up. I think that's, yeah, very smart. And that's why the tittles are such a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. He'll just put a tittle on my disc every once in a while, and I'm like, "Oh, what did I do? What did I do?" I'm so excited. Huh. And it's for something like scrubbing the toilet or, pulling weeds or whatever. Yeah, love my tittles. I'm getting up there. Where am I at now? 25, 50, 60, ooh, 72. Almost have another orgasm. It's a way of acknowledging, reinforcing it, but it also shows that he's seeing that you're trying to be of help. Yes. Yeah. Also important to reinforce force or practice the behavior when teaching. Yeah, I agree, Dino. What about especially when teaching a skill? Yeah, that's smart. I think especially when you're teaching a skill that has to do with body movements too. For me, that's a big one. Like pointing out whenever the thing I'm doing with my body is the right thing to do because I'm so out of touch um with what my body's doing. I don't know what my extremities are doing half the time. So having feedback like that is really helpful to know like what is good behavior? What is that where the measurement is? Yeah, that was awesome. Can we do that again? Yeah. I've noticed that like when you're uh specifically when you're performing oral sex on somebody, that it's really helpful to get that kind of feedback and to give that type of feedback too, especially when you're with a new partner because they haven't figured it out yet. They haven't figured out all of your where all of the buttons to push to get you off are. Um, and so I think that's definitely like one thing to help someone learn more about how your body reacts is to be vocal about it and not just let your moans and your oohs and ahs speak for you. Although those are important too. Um, but actually saying the words, I think, is helpful. Um, Focusing and refocusing your slave. He talks about learning how to do that, so that if your slave starts to drift, lose focus, um, the things that he does in order to signal to a slave that things need to get back in order, is that he will have her assume certain positions, which I think is fantastic. If he's having a bigger issue with his slave, um, he calls it a more serious drift. He said that you can achieve focus by taking away something. That's kind of like grounding someone, or by altering a routine. So I thought that those were good. Um, and allowing protocol. That's the other thing is allowing protocol to help you when you run into trouble. To revert back to what the basics are in your BDSM relationship. Going back to what your daily protocols are, and just starting from that small point and then reaching outwards. Um, he said focus in this instance sometimes mean letting go. It means removing preconceived notions about the way things should be and replacing them with how the master wants the slave to act. So I have a hard time with that myself. Sometimes I think that I know better than master, um, and so I don't listen to the way that he wants me to do things, because I either am unable to do it the way that he does it, or I think that his way is just not as good as my way, which is a little bit naughty. I'm getting such a look right now. Huh. Um, Focus is never easy to maintain in the beginning of a structured relationship, but it's well worth it in the long run. Focus is a major step towards self mastery, which is very important in this dynamic. All things I agree with. Um, Reverting to protocols, protocols they help to reinforce your dynamic. Um, they kind of give you a place to run back to when things are stressful. Um, Having a protocol of being able to just go and kneel at master's feet and um, bring an issue to him is really helpful, and it not only signals to him that there's something that's an issue that needs to be taken care of, but it also gives me a chance to kind of collect myself and reconnect with him. So yeah, I think that protocols are incredibly important in our DS relationships, for when we're having those struggles, because you can. It's almost like when you're playing tag and you finally like hit base. It's like a safe space for you. So all of life is running around and going crazy, but you have like this safe base that you can return to. Samantha, you got to go. You have a doctor's appointment tomorrow morning. Okay, we'll catch you next week then. I'll let you know how it goes with Mother's Day. I'm going to be giving these to my son this week, so I'll let you know how it goes. Bye, Samantha. He also talking about protocols. He said there's nothing like having a slave resting in a full present position while you work through some issues. If the conversation starts to sound too chatty, try asking, and how would that sound in protocol? My master's done that to me a few times. Just asking, how do you end that sentence? Because if I don't say, if I don't end my sentence with master, then that's outside of protocol. So, and it's there's comfort in those routines, and there's comfort in knowing that you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing at that moment. Kind of brings you back, and it grounds you in a better way than just taking things away, in my opinion, anyways. Do you have any protocols that you use, Dino, in your relationship where um you kind of have like a reset protocol? I like that he said when he talks about the issue, he makes sure not to make his slave feel wrong, but said he was having trouble understanding her behaviors and actually finding out what the disconnect was and why there was an issue. Yeah. Well, one of the examples that he gives is shut up, Meg. One of the things that he brings up is making assumptions. That a lot of time the disconnect comes because people are making assumptions and they're not actually communicating what is actually happening. They're making assumptions about what should or shouldn't happen. Um, so I like that there's a protocol for finding out what's going on, where the disconnect happened, and like you said, why there is an issue. I think that that's good, and I like that it's not based on what did you do wrong, but more of how did things break down in this situation? What were the circumstances that caused the issue to occur in the first place, instead of pointing fingers, because pointing fingers does nothing. That just makes people defensive and upset, and I don't think that that's helpful at all. I think that finding out where the actual issue lies, if it is in making incorrect assumptions, or if it's um, misunderstanding instructions or not getting thorough enough instructions, because it could quite frankly be that the slave wasn't in the wrong, but that they just received poor instructions from you. I think that finding that out in a constructive way is
Inconceivable!
really it's really helpful. And we know master's opinion, especially if you know the person has a personality type where you know they want to do the right thing and they would have been trying. Yes. Yes, exactly. I think that looking at that, that goes back to remember we talked about having similar worldviews where um, if you're the type of person who believes that all people are innately good, or if you have the worldview that everyone's out for themselves and everyone's trying to get you. I mean, that's knowing that your slave is the type of person who is always trying to be helpful and trying to serve you, as opposed to maybe a slave that's a little bit more of a brat and who likes to poke the bear a little bit, um, like some of us. um, I think that having that an idea of who your slave is important with that too. Getting things all lined up. Dino said not really, but oh, trying to find some to help with issues. Yeah. I ultimately get Pre to talk and share, but it should be easier with some kind of protocol. Yeah. Easier just to get into that headspace and open things up. I can see that. I'm trying to think of what kind of protocol would be helpful with that. Does anybody have any ideas? 'Cause I've heard of that. I've heard of that before, especially with submissives, either being embarrassed or not knowing exactly what they want, or um, not really quite knowing what's wrong. For me, in those instances, I mean, just getting a chance to talk things out is really helpful because sometimes I don't know what's wrong until I can voice it and kind of explore it through talking. Chatter said, I think the idea of a journal might help with it, especially if you have them regularly journaling. So it's something they're used to doing. Then, if you don't know why they've done what they did, you could ask them to journal about their process while they're doing it. Yeah, I think that's really good. And in fact, he talks a little bit about when him and his sub had a or slave had an issue. He had her write out what her perception of the problem was. And so she wrote like 4 pages, single spaced, uh, or, her recollection of what happened and what went wrong. Um, and that not only does that give her a chance to get her thoughts straightened out in her head and out on paper, um, but it also gives the master a way of reading her mind, basically.
I think you have forgotten the when you were journaling more consistently. I, had, I don't remember if I'd written this down somewhere, or I think I just told you that anything that you write in your journal is safe. You're not going to get in trouble for it. I'm not going to be. I mean, I might get mad about something, but that's on me. That's my problem. That doesn't mean I'm going to take it out on you. The point is that that's a safe space for you. So whatever you say, whatever you put in there, whatever thoughts it is, that's nothing bad's going to happen to you because of it.
Mm-hmm.
The trick, the trick as somebody who's in charge, is maintaining that discipline. Realizing that that book is meant to be a safe space so that the information in there can be helpful to both parties, not just the submissive or the owner or the master or whatever title you're taking on. The point is that's an area in which they can express their frustrations or irritations or the things that are bugging them, and then also not be concerned that that's going to, you know, be detrimental.
Mm. Mhm. I do remember that. That was always comforting to know that I could write anything I wanted to and not be paddled for it later.
Or judged. That's the
Or
more
judged.
important part. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to be a, I don't know, lizard or whatever. It's a little weird, but okay, whatever. We'll see what we can do.
Huh. Daciana said I journal, which helps. Yeah. I think journaling is really especially when you're in a dynamic. I think I agree. I don't do it anymore. But I would like to. I think that it would be helpful if I did. It just certainly helped when I did it before. How did you handle Tara's issues with family through that?
I told her to stop talking to them. Not because I think that she needs to not talk to her family, but because every time she does, they end up punching her in the face, and that's not productive.
Yeah. I got that also from my therapist. She also said, maybe you shouldn't talk to your family anymore. So
Yeah,
that was confirmation.
it's the constant underhanded digs or point blank bashing or what have you. Like I stopped going to even go like casually visiting for family reunions or birthdays or anything. I don't. I'm not interested in that. I never felt welcome to begin with, and it got progressively worse. I
Yeah.
I am not going to rehash all of the things that I have said previously because I stand by them. But
Pre's issues are usually hard things from outside, which leads her to need a catharsis and release. Then she waits too long to tell you. Yeah. She lets it build up. Well, does she wait too long to tell you because she doesn't want to burden you with all of that, or she just doesn't want to rehash it in herself? Yeah. To relive the trauma just all through the telling. I feel that sometimes. And the burden thing. Yeah, the whole burden thing. She doesn't want to burden you. Hmm. Maybe you could ask her to burden you. How can you burden me today? You hate that phrase.
yeah, I
The
don't
burden.
know if that's the phrase I would use either. How can
Huh.
you be more troublesome today?
Huh. That seems inappropriate. The thing about a burden though is that it's less of a burden if you share it with someone.
Yeah, you'd think that'd be true. It's not.
You think so?
No, it's not. It just becomes double the burden.
I don't think so. I think that when you share your troubles with someone, it just airing those things out in the open, it takes some of the power away from them. Yeah, it gets it out of your brain a little bit. It does put it on the other person, but if they are willing to take that on, like Dino is, if he wants to have that part of her, I don't think that it's not really a burden for him. It's just a release of a burden for her. And I do know when not to try to create solutions. Yeah.
Okay, a burden is something that you carry perpetually or indefinitely,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
An issue is something that can be resolved.
Mm.
So by saying burden, you're basically implying that you're carrying something around indefinitely that has no solution or you don't have a solution obvious. And by asking, hey, can I share this burden with you? That
Mm.
just automatically assumes that there is no solution and that you're just going to carry it around forever. And thank you, I don't want to do that. Let's just fix it by not talking to your parents anymore.
Sometimes it's not possible, or you're just not to the point where that's possible for you yet. Um, For instance, if one of your burdens is co-parenting and you have to deal with the co-parent, that's not a burden that you can just resolve.
God, how I wish you fucking could.
Me too. I want to go back here and read what Chatter wrote. Chatter said, I think the idea of a journal might help with it, especially if you have them regularly journaling. So it's something they're used to doing. Then, if you don't know why they've done what they did, you can ask them to journal about their thought process while they're at it. Yeah, I agree. I think that's good. Um, and because it's a journal, it might help the sub think that they are journaling and aren't causing issues, being a nuisance or a bother to the master, because it's something that you are expected to do anyway. And it's a way for the dominant to know what's going on with the sub and how they're thinking. So they can use it as a tool to make decisions going forward, too, a way to get into their brain, not just issues, but what headspace they're in general. Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that's a lot of what Master used my journal for, was just to get into my headspace and see where my head was at. And I remember there was a few times where like my journals were like very, very negative for a while. And because that was just the headspace I was in. I was going through depression. So everything that I journaled about was um, really, really, really negative. And it got to the point where Master's like, what is going on here? And I just, it was the signal that my depression had gotten worse. Was It just came out in my journaling. So you've recommended that Pri stop talking to her family. It's hard. It's hard to give up your family. I mean, it took me 10 plus years after Master told me that I probably should in order to actually do it. And part of that too is just being reminded of like when slights happened. So, for instance, like I would get off the phone with a member of my family and be like, "Oh, they said this to me. I can't believe they said this." And Master would be like, "Well, you know that's exactly in line with what they've said to you in the past." So, getting reminders of those instead of being like a typical American who like forgets what happened 5 minutes ago. Um, what do they call us, Master? The United States of amnesia. Yeah. Sometimes you don't realize how you're feeling or where you're actually at until you see it on paper too. Yes. Yeah. Well, sometimes you can't allow yourself the space to feel the way that you're feeling because it's not safe for you to do so. You're not in a good headspace in order to explore those feelings, and getting them out on paper is a way to organize your thoughts and to get your I guess just to get things like flowing out of you. And yeah, you don't really know what's going to come out until it's there. Oh, Dino, she said that first, that she shouldn't talk to her family, and you told her it was okay. It is. It is okay to not talk to your family. If your family has a negative influence on you, and if they're, you know, if talking with them affects your mental health in a negative way, it's okay to not consort with them. Same as talking with someone, just getting it out can help you sort out your thoughts. Yes, as long as you're talking to the right person. I think that there are people who can influence your thoughts or lead you in directions that are unhealthy. So when you are airing your grievances to someone, you need to make sure that you pick a good person for it. Even if it's a therapist. I have had crap therapists before who have led a discussion in a way that was not helpful at all. So you need to pick the right person to share those feelings with. You need to make sure that you're it's a safe person. And he actually talks a little bit about learning to manage discussions. He said, while Master certainly has the role, responsibility, and authority to decide, he or she also has the obligation to lead. That means that master must master the art of leading discussions with his or her slave to produce the desired results and to avoid allowing the conversation to drift into unproductive areas, areas not supporting the purpose of the discussion. I think we would call those tangents. Master may ask the slave many questions about the slave's preferences in a matter, but master will then fit decisions about those preferences into his or her assessment of the overall family needs. And that is definitely in line with how we practice. And then the last thing he says is to facilitate discussions, I like to round out each discussed idea with a 15 to 20-second position summary. I make a point never to leave a meeting or discussion unless everyone has agreed that the key issues have been addressed to everyone's satisfaction. I think along those same lines, getting or giving any kind of instruction is also a good place to have someone repeat things back to you. Having that a little summary of what's been said at the end of a discussion, if you're just getting or receiving instructions, is really helpful, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, everyone has the same expectations, um, and people aren't making incorrect assumptions. Because I think that if you're leaving a discussion not really knowing what is expected, or not really understanding what the discussion was about, having someone explain it back to you is like that's the best way to learn something is by teaching it. So having them tell you what their interpretation of the discussion is, I think is really helpful. Chatter said, I do that for every lesson before students go off to do tasks. Always get them to summarize it back before they go. It's very easy to misunderstand what you're asked to do. Yes. And a lot of times you get focused on like one specific part of the task, and that's like that becomes your focus when really this whole other thing over here was really what your focus was supposed to be. So yeah, I think that that's just a good communication tool. Period. I don't think it just has to do with MS. Um, Summarizing what your discussion was about is, I think it's a good idea. That's it. That's all I got, you guys. Anybody have anything that they wanted to say about the book, or anything that they learned or discussed in this chapter, or any extras? I thought it was a good book. There was a lot of introspection and a lot of questions to be asked and to consider and think about. I thought the stuff about the safe call was really valuable too. Oh, to read if anyone wants to later, the first appendix. Yes, there was the first appendix was on how to do a safe call, which actually safe call was one of my kinky trivia questions. It's more than just a check-in. A safe call is when you go and you meet someone for the first time, the second time, whenever, and you don't really know what to expect, or who they are, or they could be like a murderer in disguise. So you arrange a safe call so that you're going to call someone at a specific time. You have coded words so that if the person that you're with like forces you to make that safe call, you have code words that would trigger someone calling the police or trigger someone to know that you're safe. I think the thing that he had said was something about wearing pajamas or something. Like, okay, well, go ahead and put your pajamas on and go to bed. Like that was their um their code for I'm safe and everything's great.
You know who also has safe calls?
Who, master?
Spies.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Tell me about the spies, master.
I'm not going to because I see the look on your face.
I love hearing about spies. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, but just assume that every meeting that you're going to is not a safe meeting, and that the other person is intending on killing you, and then move forward with that preconception. Oh, I found a red X on the child crosswalk area, which means I need to get to my drop and make the drop now because it's being expected. And oh, fuck, there's the KGB. Son of a bitch. I guess I'm being deported.
Chatter said the only thing I thought might be too weird in his suggestions was getting a copy of the person's driver's license before you met with them and send that to your safe call person. I think that was a bit too much, but I like the other advice. It's probably a good idea, but I'd feel way too awkward asking for that. I've asked for that before. And in fact, I used to participate in a rideshare program when I would take the kids down. It was like an hour and a half drive to take them to their dad's, and so I would do a rideshare. I'd have a stranger that I didn't know would get into my car and they would help me pay for gas to get down there. And what I would do is I would take a picture of their license or their ID and I would send that to Master.
I want to point out that you don't clearly live on the I 5 corridor. You know, the I 5 corridor that has had 6 or 7 serial killers stalking it over the last 30 years.
I do live on the I-5 corridor.
Yeah, it's fucking terrifying.
But I was never murdered. Yet?
You're not murdered until you're murdered, jackass.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm over. I mean, I'm one for. I mean, I'm winning. I'm winning the murdering game. But with play partners, I've done the similar things. I've taken pictures. I've just snapped a picture with my phone when I get there, and then send that to Master, and that way he can. And I tell them, I'm like, this is just in case my partner needs to identify you to the police later. And I make it a joke, but yeah, that's. If you were talking about meeting up with a possible play partner, would you ask them for a driver's license before meeting up? No, I have never done that. I wouldn't. Uh, a driver's license is kind of a personal thing because it has your all of your information on there. It's got your your name, your address, your weight. So I would feel uncomfortable giving my driver's license to someone before meeting them, because you don't know who's gonna try to use that information to scam you. I don't know. I would be hesitant about that. I think a picture's fine though. Some people don't like to have their last names. What? 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 Oh yeah, they put your weight on your driver's license.
Yeah, everything.
They don't put your weight on your driver's license? No? The weight on my driver's license is my goal weight. It's not my real weight.